the head gasket went out, so I was like driving around with, giant plumes of smoke coming out the back.
Yeah, yeah,
So I basically had to have the engine rebuilt, new tranny,
yeah. No,
every part, the whole new exhaust system, front end, reductor, rear end. It's
okay,
it's a 34-year-old car, dude, and it's been driven hard and not just by me.
right. Let me see.
But dude, I can tell you that right now, all of Eastern Europe gets the shittiest cars everywhere from fucking Poland to China. And they
Okay,
send them to Donetsk to sell to the suckers. The
okay,
pieces of shit, dude. And it's like, they buy them for $2,000 and put a fucking paint job that'll last about 6 months on them.
okay, okay.
Put floor mats over the rust where your fucking foot can go down to the street.
Okay, Russell, I'm gonna cut you here because we are about to go live.
Давай, брат, давай.
And yeah, and now let me just check if the connection is good to YouTube. Yeah, we are feeding. Excellent connection, it tells me. So yeah, we are live. We are live. How are you, my friend?
It is great to see you again, bro. It's been a while, and we had to jump through some hoops to get this going tonight, but I'm glad we did. It's worth it. I'm always glad to talk to you.
It's likewise. It's different feeling for me being talking to you right now, because we are no longer strangers. We have shared the same roof, and we have shared table at dinner and with some great people. And so I really feel that I have made a new friend, and thank you for that, Russell.
Absolutely, bro.
And so, unfortunately, it's not all good because as you know, a lot of shit is going on. And I wanted last week I wanted to talk to you about the elections, which I think we will come to that tonight. But for now, we have these recent events. A lot of people died in Moscow, and without getting in too much speculation, let's just try to think about what happened. And
I can tell you, bro, without speculation, that it is already okay. First of all, the guys that did it were captured.
True. That's substantial information.
Okay, so and you can bet that when the Russian Criminal Investigation Department starts investigating someone, they're going to tell every single thing that there is. They're going to tell everything. I mean,
yeah.
It's like in Spain or in France or in Mexico, they have the Napoleonic Code. They can't convict you unless you confess.
True.
But they can do anything they want to make you confess.
True. And actually, I've seen some pretty gruesome images already. They were taken by there was some footage that I saw. Actually, this is in a Telegram channel. It's actually I told you about this channel previously. It's called the Philanthropic Division. They are utter Nazis, and they played there some video of someone ripping off one of these guys' ear and feeding it to him. So
well, that's bullshit. That's bullshit, dude. You can't believe. I mean, that's them doing it to some other dude and saying that's the Russians doing it to one of these prisoners. That's a lie. That's complete fake. Hold on.
Yeah. Okay.
That's completely fake.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, of course, when the defenders of Russia capture these vermin that slaughtered 150 men, women, and children going to a concert, going to a shopping mall the night before. They're not going to be too careful. I mean, and I've seen the videos of these guys that are captured, and they did have some blood. There's
Mhm.
one guy that had some blood on his ear, but it wasn't ripped off, and he wasn't getting fed his ear. When I saw the guy that was handcuffed on his knees, and
Okay.
he was shaking like a dog trying to shit a peach pit.
Yes,
He
I
was,
think we're talking about the same guy. Yes, yes.
yeah. And so, so of course, these guys are not going to have another pleasant moment for the rest of their lives. And the
True.
longer their lives are, the worse it's going to be. And they deserve it. But I
That's
have to say that, to be honest, they're just idiots. They're just tools and fools.
when I
They were offered, 500,000 rubles, which is like less than $6,000
true,
to commit mass murder.
true.
These guys are brainwashed. They're, on some kind of really super heavy psychotropic drugs or some shit. But, their lives are over. Their lives are over. And
I
so,
yeah, I'm sorry, really sorry to be interrupting you, and I agree with you. I mean that video, because the feeding of the ear to the guy wasn't actually clear. It was a picture made,
no,
claimed to
dude,
taken out of the
anything from the
video.
philanthropic division.
Yeah,
I mean, these are not just Nazis. These are absolute psychopaths.
yeah, true.
These are demons, bro.
I know, I
I
know.
would
I
I
see.
would
I
I
see.
would suggest that you not watch that channel, dude, because these are satanic motherfuckers.
Well, I have a hard time when I watch them, and I don't go there often.
There's no good reason to watch that channel, bro,
Mhm.
because they're truly satanic. Anything they put on there is to fuck up your brain. It is to make you believe a lie. There's no good reason to watch those guys
And it
because
is, and it is to.
everything they say is a
Mhm.
lie.
It's true, and I see their intent to terrorize people, to make people, to put fear in the heads of people. I can see that.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
that's not a channel that I would recommend or watch. I
No,
mean,
no. Yes.
I understand that in information warfare, you have to sometimes see what the enemy is putting out so you know how to fight against it. And I hate doing that.
Me too.
I have to force myself to read or
Same.
watch Ukraine propaganda in general. But I mean, that's the worst of the worst. I mean, it's like, that's like watching uh, Barack Obama get fucked by his husband Michelle. There's no good reason for it.
No, for it.
And
I.
so,
Mhm.
and you can't learn nothing. I mean, that's so bad you can't learn nothing from it.
It
It's
is
just going to scramble your brain.
getting
But
back.
let me say this
Okay,
about
okay.
this thing that happened last night. Here is what's known. At least some of the dudes that actually did the killing, there was like 11 dudes, 3 or 4, maybe 5 were the guys that went in with machine guns and killed everybody. The others were like support guys waiting outside with cars. Some of them were from Tajikistan.
Mhm.
The supposed leader that they've also captured was talking today on video that was released, and he didn't even speak Russian. He was speaking the Tajik language.
Mhm.
And so another one of them, the guy that was shaken, he said that he flew. He didn't say where he came to Turkey from, but he said he flew from Turkey to Russia on the 4th of March. So,
Okay.
he wasn't like a longtime sleeper agent or anything. He just got here too. He said they offered to pay him 500,000 rubles, which is just $5,000
Mhm.
basically. Um, They gave him half on a bank card, and they said they're going to pay him the other half later, which they never were. And I mean, so for $2,500, this idiot, lost his life and his soul.
True. True.
So that's known. These
Mhm.
guys, it is known that they left Moscow and they were heading for Bryansk to try and cross what's, kind of a gray zone border now because of all the combat that's going on there. It is said that the Ukrainians were in contact with them and told them the open corridor to use to get back into Ukraine,
Okay.
which means that this terrorist act was a complete Ukrainian operation. And of course, everyone with any sense knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that nothing happens in Ukraine except with on the orders and with the permission of the US deep state, the CIA, the State Department, the military that owns and controls Zelensky and the whole Ukrainian government. So, I mean, and of course, this goes back to at the beginning of March, the US and British embassies in Russia both put out warnings saying that they had information about an upcoming event and don't go in crowded places and, be very careful. They didn't share any of the information that they had with Russia, which is what any decent, government or nation that wasn't a terrorist nation would have done. But I mean, so basically we have direct links, between the terrorists that did the shooting and have been captured and who are talking, direct links from them to Ukraine and from Ukraine to, at the minimum, the US and UK, because they had forewarning about it. They knew it was going to happen.
True.
And they warned their own people in Russia, but they didn't give any details or facts about what they knew, which makes them accessories to it. And so now you see 150 at least so far women, children, unarmed men, just cold-blooded murdered, slaughtered.
It is the
And
risk. Yes.
if that ain't terrorism, then there's no such thing as terrorism.
True.
And if it is terrorism, then it needs to be called such and it needs to be treated as such.
Okay.
And it's like, the United States invaded Iraq
Mhm.
on the false claim that they were sponsors of terrorism. The United States has had economic sanctions against Iran for 40 years, more than 40 years,
Mhm.
because they say, oh, it's a state sponsor of terrorism.
Mhm.
So if we have a direct link from this massacre in Moscow, slaughter of civilians, to the US and UK, then it gives, by any measure of decency, it gives Russia the right to do to the United States and the UK at least, and Ukraine, of course, at least everything that the United States has done to, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Yemen, right on down the line.
It.
And
Mhm.
I hope they do. I hope Russia does, because I hope that this will be the catalyst, the motivation for Russia to take the gloves off
It
and
it,
say, okay,
it is.
oh, the U.S. embassy in Kiev, it's a center for the direction of terrorism. We're going to put a few Kenzals in it. And what is the United States going to do about it? You don't like it? Then quit doing terrorism, and we'll quit blowing up your embassies.
Mhm,
You know, that should be a target.
mhm.
The U.S. embassy in Kiev should be destroyed.
What I have a hard time here, because since immediately after this happened, with the news here, everything, everyone, I mean, it was my father that called me. Do you know what happened in Moscow? Because I had been sleeping prior to go to work. And no, I have to look into it. And then they are saying it's ISIS, and I said, "That's very strange. That's very strange."
Well,
But
of
they
course,
immediately they are like they are sure that it is, and they are pointing to that, and but it is. Thank you, Russell. First of all, because you just summed it up all very well. It all points
well, and
to,
I can tell you
yeah.
about this lie that it's ISIS. And first of all, it wasn't ISIS. These guys are from Tajikistan. You know, they're not from, the they're not from the Middle East.
Hmm.
They're from Eurasia. I mean, second of all, you can tell, and this is an important point, dude. I've watched the video of the killers at work, from the CCTV.
Hmm.
And you know what? You can tell that these are not just combat veterans, they're very well trained combat veterans. I
Hmm.
mean, they change their magazines without fumbling around. They were trained to do that. They've done that under combat conditions before.
Hmm.
These are not some dude that was herding goats a month ago. These are highly trained uh, mercenary killers, professional killers.
Hmm. Hmm.
And, they, they're, well, I'll just say that. So they were put to this job. I mean, and they're already saying their job, the people that hired them, that told them they were going to pay them 500,000 rubles, said, just go in there and kill everybody. And you understand, dude, there are, I mean, let me ask you something, my brother, my friend. If, I mean, for what reason, what would I have to say to convince you to go into a shopping mall, or, an open market, or, wherever, the center square? What could I say to you that would convince you to just go in there and start killing everybody, men, women, and children?
It's a very easy to answer that one, and it would be impossible to convince me of that.
It is
Utter.
impossible to convince me of that. It is impossible to convince any normal, decent human
Mhm,
being to just go slaughter men, women, and children. These are people that are the subjects of either, some kind of super powerful psychological drug, or years of brainwashing, or perhaps they're just spiritually defective people. There are a certain percent that are just born psychopaths who enjoy to torture and kill.
mhm,
And you know what? And so there's two kinds of people. There's the kind of people that enjoy to torture and kill, and there's the kinds of people, that, I mean, and that doesn't make it doesn't. I'm not talking about soldiers. I mean, I've been a soldier. I've been in combat. I've killed Nazis that were armed and that were coming to my position where I was trying to kill me.
Of course, of
And
course.
I make no apology about that.
Yeah, of
And that's
course.
not the same as going somewhere to hunt down and slaughter men, women, and children. It's two different
Yeah,
things.
completely different things, of course.
So there's those who can just, just like, if you live on the farm and you have to go cut the chicken's head off to have chicken for dinner.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and I've done that too, and I felt sorry for the chicken.
Yeah, it is. It's not a pleasant task to do.
It's not, but at the same time, these people can do it to people, to children,
Unarmed, completely helpless and unaware.
defenseless.
Yeah, defenseless. Exactly. So yeah, this is
And without even, and that was another one of the things, dude, that was noticed from these videos of what they were doing. They didn't even get emotional. They didn't even hesitate. They're just like, pop, pop, pop,
yeah.
And so, people, at least most normal human beings are not born that way. They're not born
No,
that way.
I believe that too.
They have to be either brainwashed into it or some kind of drugs or, some kind of torture, traumatic experience themselves that makes them into soulless zombies.
Mhm.
You know,
I mean, a lot
that's
of
the only way that you can do that.
yeah, and we know that armies and superpowers in the world have been trying to create super soldiers for quite some time now, and a lot of experiments have been done. And I think the U.S. is not it's not very
Probably
innocent.
the leader, dude.
Yeah.
But of course, now they don't have to worry about that because they're gonna have pretty soon they're gonna have robots, dude.
True.
And drones are the beginning of that.
Yeah.
Drones are, this war in Donetsk the war started in 2014, but since the special military operation, and actually, I had a friend who was in Syria. He was in Wagner. He was in Syria, like from 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that Syria was the first real drone war. Syria and Libya.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly the special military operation in Ukraine, which even the Russians are now beginning to say, you know what, it's not de jure, but de facto, this is war.
Yes.
And we know who the enemy is, and it's not only in Kiev.
No.
And
it is.
But this special military operation is the first real drone war. I have a good friend who flies drones for Russian Spetsnaz. And since the special military operation, and I can say he's killed hundreds of Nazis. And it sometimes it bugs him. He's like, he tells me, dude, I killed 5 Ukrainian soldiers today. I was so close I could see the guy looking up at me, or at my drone rather.
Yeah.
And he said, and this guy's from Kiev, bro.
Yeah.
And he came here in 2014 to fight against the Nazis in Kiev.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I hit this guy once, he's wounded, he can't move. My job now is to finish him off. And I can see, I'm looking at his face, looking up at the drone.
Yeah.
Knowing what's going to happen. And he said, and I looked at this guy and he's like, if I had met him in Kiev 10 years ago, we could have been friends or something. He looks like a guy,
Yeah. A lot of, you have a lot of draftees there. So,
yeah. But of course, the thing is, you have to be responsible for your choices. And, in Kiev back in early 22, when they were expecting that the Russian army was going to be coming into Kiev, which it should have. and
True.
could have. And they went out on the streets and, you know, with giant Kamaz trucks, 5-ton trucks, and they were just handing out Kalashnikovs and
Yeah,
RPGs
I remember.
and Makarov pistols and
Mhm.
ammunition by the caseload to anybody that walked up. They didn't say, okay, here, sign this, or let me see your passport. They just looked, here.
Yeah.
You know what? And so those guys now should be understanding who their real enemy is. All those weapons should be pointed at who the real enemy is, which is anybody in Kiev speaking English or Spanish
Mhm.
or, you know,
Any,
whatever,
yeah.
Polish,
Well, yes,
you know,
yeah.
or anybody saying Slava Geroyim,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know, or anybody with the Azov patch. That's the real enemies of the human beings that are left in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's, you know, and so some dude that gets captured and you know, conscripted into the Ukrainian army. I mean, bro, you know, of course, as you know, I have guns here.
It's just behind you.
That's right. And but if I didn't have a gun, I'd have a hatchet under my jacket when I went out. If I was a dude living in Kiev and I was subject to being, you know, kidnapped off the street and sent straight to the front, I'd have a hatchet under my jacket. And anybody that came up and put their hands on me, I would chop their hands off. Bro.
You know,
I
but
mean,
that's actually very similar to what's happening in reality. There's been hundreds, maybe thousands of videos now out of Ukrainians resisting conscription, forced conscription. That's actually not far from reality.
that's good. And it's about time, dude. And they, you know, I mean, it's like they should understand. And you know what? People in Europe should understand the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And people in the United States should understand the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
What goes around comes around. What the vermin, the scum that own your governments in Europe and the United States and Canada and Australia, New Zealand, Japan,
Mm-hmm.
all these fascist owned countries.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
They're the real enemies. Russia is not the enemy. Your own fascist governments are the enemy. And what they're doing in Gaza,
yeah. I mean,
in Donbass,
yes.
in Belgorod, in Moscow,
Yeah.
the terrorists,
And
what they're doing there,
yeah.
these fascist governments from the West are going to do sooner or later to their own people. And now it's late enough to where it's going to be sooner and a lot sooner than most people think.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, a buddy of mine that lives in the States, you know, and he's a great dude. He's a real genuine hero, a smart guy. He's invested heavily in, you know, if everything turns off tomorrow, he's got a place up in the hills where he can go and live for as long as he can live till they come get him.
Mm-hmm.
And he sees what's going on. He understands. And he asked me, he's like, dude, when is it that we should, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
get revolutionary, you know, like the French resistance or like the IRA, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
when we need to get militant? He asked me that. And I told him, I said, like, dude, when they come to take away your guns, that's it. That's when you fight.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, free men own guns. Slaves don't.
It is a very it's a very present concept in where you come from in Texas. It's
That's right. And
yeah.
it's also a very present concept where I am here. But it's even most important in Europe and in places. I mean, and I'll tell you, this is like technical advice. I mean, I don't know how it is in Portugal,
Oh, it's
but
very restrictive to own a gun.
okay, but you can have like a shotgun,
Yeah,
right?
for hunting.
Yeah, yeah, okay. You know what? A shotgun is a good weapon at close range. It's a good weapon.
Yeah, it is.
And let me tell you something, bro. And I mean, I'm not advocating violence in any means,
No, we're
but
not.
I can just, of course not. But I can tell you that from historical experience and my own personal experience, it's very easy to make a shotgun.
Mhm,
It's very easy. You can go to the hardware store and for 20 bucks,
mhm.
you can make a working shotgun.
True.
But
True.
what is not easy is to make the ammunition for shotguns.
But that's actually quite easy to find. It's
Well, then
yeah, yeah.
that's good. And I would say that anybody that ever wanted to even consider the possibility at some time in the future where they might
Mhm.
want to do some hunting,
I have
they
to.
should probably, get, I would say it would be a very good investment to get several hundred shotgun shells.
Uh, the
And if you can, and if you have a regular shotgun, that's great. But if you don't, you can, I mean, it's like plumbing pipe, bro. I mean,
yeah,
and,
yeah. I
and
know, I
I've
know,
done
I
it
know, I know.
myself. I've
Yeah,
done it myself, and it works. And I mean, and it's good for like maybe 10 meters,
yeah.
but at 10 meters, you don't want to be on the other end of it, dude, because it will shred you. Even if you have a bulletproof vest, some of it's going to hit you in the face
Well,
or in the arms or in the balls.
yeah, yeah. But I must say that the Portuguese reality, since you've touched upon it, it's a little bit different. And since we had 1,100,000 people voting for this right-wing party, I would not trust people. There would be a high probability of a lot of people with these guns being these people that are more pro.
Well, I mean, and so, I mean, believe me, bro, if, you know, the people that serve the Nazis, okay, so what is a Nazi? What is a fascist?
Mhm.
Benito Mussolini gave the definition of fascism
Yeah,
almost 100 years ago now.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
He said fascism should better be called corporatism
Mhm.
because it is the merger of corporate and state power.
And
And
yeah.
he was putting it nicely,
Hmm.
or at least more optimistically than what we have now in Europe and the United States,
Hmm.
which is absolutely fascism, but it's not the merger of corporate and state power. It's the corporate ownership
Hmm.
of governments. You know, the corporations and the oligarchs, the parasite class that own those corporations
True, true.
completely, absolutely. They own the government from the
Yeah,
president to the dog catcher to the bus
yeah,
driver
yeah,
to
yeah,
the state senate to
yeah, yeah.
the
That's why
federal
the
senate. They own them
yeah,
completely.
yeah. That's why after we see this ultra neoliberalism thinking going rampant, the next stage is fascism. I know. This is
And dude, and you understand, and this is very important
yeah.
to understand is that, politics is not linear. It's not like, oh, here's the left and here's the right.
No, 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 no.
It's circular, bro.
Yeah.
And if you go so far right, you become left. And if you go so far left,
Yeah,
you become right. And
that's
dude, and
true.
that's a simple fact.
That's true. I do agree with you, and I do agree with your assessments, with your views. I'm, of course, the Portuguese reality doesn't, and it's a positive thing that it still doesn't adapt, and it still works like a little bit of a safe haven amid of all this. I mean, we have the right wing on the rise, but I don't think they had 18%. I think they had their best chance. This is what I'm hoping for. But the thing is, wait, I just lost you here for a second. Okay, I have you back. So the thing is that we, what is worrying me, apart from all this discussion of left and right and who is right in the political spectrum, is that all the news, all the media, even with all the internet you have available that you can go to different places to, they are offensive. It's so big that everyone, and this moment, I know the majority of the Europeans think it was ISIS who did this. They think Russia is a terrorist state. They think they have all this, all these concepts from the Western propaganda. And even worse than that, I do think the Western propaganda also affects Russians. As for I could.
Of course it does. Of course it does. And I'll tell you something, bro. It's already, first of all, the U.S. government said it was ISIS before these dudes were even captured.
True. Yeah.
I mean, that's a simple fact. I mean, chronologically, it's a fact.
Yeah.
And so, of course, that's a lie.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it reminds me of when the BBC reported that World Trade Center 7 came down 30 minutes before it came down,
Yeah.
Okay. But so the lie that the Western propaganda is putting out that these guys were ISIS is already being as completely debunked and disproved as, the BBC saying that the World Trade Center had come down before it came down. And you know what they're going to do next? And mark my words and watch and see. They're going to say, oh, yeah, it was a Russian false flag.
Yeah.
The Russians.
Yeah.
The Russians killed their own people.
But it's already circulating. No, it's. I mean, you are spot on because that theory, that version is also already circulating. Yeah, of course. Oh, the Russians are going to use this to do evil things and yeah. Well, I think.
And imagine how fucking stupid someone would have to be to actually believe that. And then understand that there are millions and millions, hundreds of millions of idiots that are that stupid.
Unfortunately, I mean, I don't want to be. Look, I don't want to be too aggressive to any audience that might get to know us in this precise moment. But unfortunately, I mean, I think you're right, and sometimes I feel myself with less and less patience to try to explain.
I mean, bro, because the thing is,
yeah.
I mean, okay, look, we are information warriors, right? We are guys who try to make a better world for everybody in it, a multipolar, egalitarian, internationalist world where all people in all countries have the same basic human rights and the same opportunities for human development, for, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as we say in the United States.
Amen.
Okay, so that's our job. And so, and there's a small number of people, maybe 5 or 10% in the world who are with us and who understand and who that's their goal too.
Yeah.
And the other 90% or so are either They're brainwashed, they're deceived by the lies, the scientifically applied professional lies, I mean, and it's a science now. Disinformation, propaganda is scientific now,
It
and
is. It is, of
and it's
course.
only going to get worse. And so you can't, I mean, you can't condemn these people that are fooled because maybe they're, I don't know, from some African village or from some backwoods place in, Sicily or the hills of Switzerland or something, and they've never, never read a book in their life,
Hmm.
But so our job as information warriors
Hmm.
is to overcome their ignorance by bringing them the truth,
Hmm.
by explaining it in a way that they can understand,
Yes.
that will convince them.
And at least try to.
But
Hmm.
hold on, let me
No,
finish
no,
this
I
point
will. I
here,
will.
bro.
Sorry, sorry.
I'm not trying to preach here, but dude, you're gonna listen to this and remember
No,
it
but I
and
know
tell
it.
your friends, bro.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so there's, you know, and first of all, there's an old saying that, ignorance in the information age is a choice, and I've had people literally tell me when I talk to them about, you know, earth changing, life and death, political matters, who said, I don't want to know, who literally said, I don't want to know.
Mhm.
So, ignorance is a choice, but being ignorant means, to say that someone is ignorant is not necessarily a compliment, but it's not an insult either. I mean, it literally means not knowing. It means they don't know,
Yes.
and they can choose to know, and someone can teach them. But the difference between someone being ignorant and someone being stupid is this: someone that's ignorant doesn't know. Someone that's stupid doesn't want to know. And and really, it's and the people that don't want to know the facts, it's because the facts conflict with their erroneous worldview.
I agree.
If some Nazi, if you go tell some Nazi, hey, you know what, every every Asian person, every black person, every Latin person is equally as much of a human being as you. And he's like, no, I'm white power. White people are, inherently superior, Ubermenschen,
Yeah, over mentioned.
or
Yeah.
God's chosen people. You know, when you take an egalitarian argument to somebody that's a racist, or a nationalist or a Zionist,
Or a classicist.
yeah, and or a classist, someone that says, oh,
No.
I have $1 billion, so that makes me
Yeah.
a million times better than the guy that has $1,000,
Yes.
and very excellent point there, bro. But you bring them and you say, here's the facts, and then they don't want to know the facts, because then they would have to admit that not only are they full of shit, they've been wrong their whole life,
Hmm.
and the measly and corrupt and contemptible lies that they've based their life and their personality upon are just exactly that. And so, people would rather die than admit they were wrong.
It's true.
or at least not people, but egoists.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, someone who thinks that they're superior when they're not
Mm-hmm.
would rather kill or die than face that truth.
There is. There is. I do see this, and I've been putting out now almost daily videos where I reflect upon those things, and I think it's, for me, in a very simplistic way of putting it, I do think neoliberalism thought is to blame mostly now for this spreading of this disease, this egoistic behavior, and this egoistic stance towards life. I call it a disease because this is what stops us from getting together and solving our problems together, right? Instead of
I
just,
agree with that completely, bro.
Yeah.
But understand that the real war is the war of evil. I mean, I'm an Orthodox Christian. I'm a Russian Orthodox Christian. I believe in God, and so of course I believe in the devil.
Mhm.
I believe in good incarnate, and so of course I have to understand that there's also evil incarnate. We saw it in action last night in Moscow.
Yeah, true, true. Mhm.
And so, I mean, you know what I mean? It's like these school shootings that they have in the United States and stuff, you know, I mean, and the worst one of those, I think, you know, killed like 40 or 50, you know, the guy in Sweden on that island, you know, for the
Yeah,
socialist summer camp.
in Norway, you mean
Yeah, Norway, yeah.
Anders Breivik? Yeah, I do remember. The guy is very comfortable in prison now, in a Norwegian prison,
Yeah, dude.
spending
Well,
his
you know,
time.
one of these days he's going to die and his soul is going to get what it deserves. But so if you believe in good and evil, then you understand that's what the real war is about here. You know, that's what it really is.
Mhm.
You know, and it's like everything that each of us does matters. You know, it doesn't matter, you know, and even if you work, you know, at a gas station pumping gas or whatever, you know, everything you do matters because, and it's not that God sees you and judges you, it's that the universe sees you and doesn't judge you, but when you die, you know how they say when you die your whole life flashes before you.
Before you, in the last moments. Yeah, I heard.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you know what, that might even just be a second in, like, you know, terrestrial time, but it's your whole life being replayed, you know, at regular speed, but you see yourself from all the other people who your actions affected.
Mhm. Mhm.
So you don't see it like now we see, you know, from our eyeballs, from behind our eyeballs, you know, and you see, you know, the old lady outside the store, you know, with the crutch and a cup begging for money, you know, and you go by and you put 100 rubles in the cup, or else you go say, go get a fucking job, you old hag,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know. And then when you review your life, you're that old lady,
Mhm.
and you get to feel what it feels like when somebody puts 100 rubles in, or, you know, gives you some shit for being old and sick, you know. And I mean, and your whole life, you know, you see your whole life from the perspective of the universe.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so imagine, and you know what? And that's perfect justice. What could be more perfectly just and fair than that?
It's true, and it's actually quite comforting when we think along those lines. But you know me, I'm a thick-headed atheist, and I still.
Well, I mean, that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. You'll learn. But you know what? And don't worry about it, because it isn't like, you know, how many times, you know, you cross yourself, or how many times you go to church. It's how much good you do in the world. And brother, you do good in this world.
Mm.
So you got nothing to worry about. You
I,
got nothing to worry about.
I try. I try. I blame myself a lot of times for not doing enough, but I try.
Well, none of us does enough, or else the world wouldn't be as bad as it is now, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
Einstein, who was a pretty smart dude, and he was also a socialist, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
which is the nice word for communist if you lived in America back in the 50s and 60s. He said the answer to all the world's problems can be found in the space between what people do and what they could do.
Do. That's a very good one. That's a very good one.
Yeah.
I always find it very refreshing to have this kind of conversations with you,
Dude,
and
me too, man. I mean, and sorry if I've been talking
no,
so much, man,
no,
but
it's my live stream, and it's a free space. I mean, it's a free space, and I wanted to talk about some other subjects that's going on in Russia. For example, I saw your video where you go to vote, and a lot of people here are immediately. I mean, immediately, not even before the booth is closed by the end of the day of the voting. Everyone here in the West is already saying, "Yeah, it's impossible. These North Korea style elections wins with 90%. All of this is fake and da 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 da." So, and I know that you can be very harsh critic of the place where you are now in Donetsk and in Russia under Russia administration. So please give me your take on these elections. Were they?
well, I mean, the simple answer is that the people of Russia and especially the people of Donbass are not stupid. They're not stupid. I mean, first of all, we're in a war. The Nazis are attacking us. I mean, not just Donbass, but Russia.
Mhm.
So, do we think that we would be better off surrendering to the Nazis? I mean, dude, people in Russia have one of the best understandings of politics and history of any country on earth.
True.
And so, I mean, first of all, we remember what the Nazis did less than 100 years ago here.
Mhm.
There's right from where I'm sitting right now, there's an old mine called the 44 mine. It's a couple of kilometers away from here. There's 75,000, maybe 100,000 bodies down at the bottom of that mine that the Germans, the German Nazis occupied the city of Donetsk, which back then was called
Stalino.
Stalino.
Yeah.
They occupied it for 700 days and they killed hundreds of thousands of people there. But in 700 days, in this one place, it was like the body disposal. It was 365 meters deep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Straight down. And, the people that they executed somewhere else, or sometimes live people, sometimes whole families, and the Gestapo or the SS dude just say, take them to the mine.
Mhm. And
And just,
so,
I mean, it was 365 meters deep at the beginning of the occupation, and it was 300 meters deep. I mean, excuse me, 65 meters deep
mhm.
when the Germans were driven out. And that's 300 meters, bro.
did
A
did
1,000 feet, more than 1,000 feet.
did any shelling took place in the voting places in Donetsk while people were
You know
voting there?
what? Not really. Not really in the center of the city. In other places they did, but not in Donetsk. But they probably got the word from their bosses, instructions, don't bomb the voting stations. Don't bomb on the 3 days of voting, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday last week. Just because it would make such a bad PR
too obvious.
picture.
Too obvious.
Yeah, too obvious. And it's funny. The US and the U-Crops, they're like, oh, it's a fake election. There's Russia is undemocratic. In Ukraine, Zelensky, the president, has decreed we're not having elections. So, and you know what? And so the people here, they understand that they're in a life and death struggle against Nazis who will destroy their country, who almost did destroy it back in the 1990s once already. And through the grace of God and the strength and wisdom of Vladimir Putin, they were brought back from the edge of the cliff.
Let me be the devil's advocate and make you this question. But how people still voting for the same person who's been there for 25 years? I mean,
and there's a super simple answer to that, dude. And I saw some clown that was like, I don't know, he was in Brussels or something, and he was like going up and down the line of people waiting to vote at the Russian embassy. And he's like, who is against Putin? Give me 5. And no one, even in Europe, Russians that live in Europe, no one. I mean, they were like, they were too polite to spit on him, but that's what they wanted to do. But here's the thing, bro. The simple question is, if you're a patriot of Russia, if you're a Russian citizen, if you want the future of your country and your family and your children to be good, who the fuck else could you possibly vote for besides Putin? I mean, name somebody that could ensure the future of Russia better than Putin. And you know what? I mean, and that's why Putin got 85%.
I've been in Russia in 2005, and I went back to Russia last November when we met, and I could see a difference, and not a small one.
Yeah, of course, and all for the better, And here's let me ask you something else. I ask this of my friends in the United States, but it applies to my friends in Europe too. When's the last time your government did anything that made the lives of regular working class people better?
I do have an answer for that if concerning Portugal. And it was the only brief moments after the 1974 revolution. And since that, it's
been about 50 years now. Yeah. It's about time for them to do something else, don't you think?
Yeah. Since that, I mean, working, deregulation, all the neoliberal recipe. Deregulation, paying for banking, banking craziness, and all this gamble economy.
Fascism, the corporations own the government. All the laws are to make the corporations richer at the expenses of the population.
And that's it. And that's really sums it up.
And that's all it is, dude. So in Russia, I mean, in pretty much every metric of human quality of life, of human development, since Putin became the president, all of those have gone up.
Yeah, and considerably.
Every single one of them.
Yeah, every single.
And what country in Europe or in the West, in Australia or Japan or New Zealand or Canada. What country in the West can say that? Can say, hey, you know what? We're really the regular working people are better off now than we were 20 years ago.
Yeah.
What country can say that in
Yeah,
the
true.
West?
That's
Not one.
it's a
So,
very strong point.
and that's the thing. This is a perfect example. These idiots
Mhm.
that say, oh, it's, North Korean style elections, they they come to your house with a gun and make you vote.
Yeah, or they go inside the voting booth and check what are you voting for with the gun. I've seen this. Yeah.
I mean, dude, when I went to vote, I had a gun. I'm not scared of somebody coming up to me with a gun.
Yeah, that's true. That's actually a great point.
And a lot of people here in Donetsk, in Donbass, have guns. Man, we've already stood up to the Nazis. If the Russians were a totalitarian dictatorship, and they're not, but if they were, we would stand up to them.
True.
And you can bet on that, and I can guarantee it
Mhm.
because we've done it before.
That is true. That is true.
So, the reason that Putin was overwhelmingly reelected again is because he is loved and respected and trusted by every intelligent Russian citizen. And Russia, unlike most countries, especially in the West, has about 85% intelligent citizens.
True.
You look at,
Mhm.
supposedly something more than 50% of the US voters in 2020 voted for Joe Biden. And
Yeah.
how fucking stupid do you have to be to vote for a degenerate, incontinent, corrupt, war criminal,
And he's actually senile.
lying pedophile?
Yeah, and he's actually senile. He's not. He doesn't
He's,
have.
he's literally senile.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
He
Yeah.
can't find his own ass with both hands.
I.
For years now. Not just is he completely incompetent. But he's a corrupt, evil bastard. But the simple question that I ask all the American idiots who voted for him, I say, look, dude, if you had to go to the airport and you called a cab and the cab came and Joe Biden was driving, how far do you think you'd go before you said, hey, look, dude, just let me out here on the side of the road? I'll walk the rest of the way.
That's another good point. Excellent one. Oh yeah, that would. If only we could share a shot of vodka now, and a pickle. That's true. One other question I had was, how's the environment when I slept there? What was 3 nights, 4 nights? Don't recall. It was 3 nights, I think. And for me, it was a unique experience to fall asleep with the noise, with the sounds of artillery afar, and we actually heard some pretty close to where we were living. And so, how is it now since Avdiivka has been captured and Marinka has been captured?
In the center of the city, it's not as bad as it was when you were here.
Okay.
That was a very tough time for the center. In Petrovsky district, Kirovsky, Kievsky, it's still very bad there because these are areas that are still within the range of drones.
And shells, maybe. Also.
The kamikaze drones, and also, the modified Mavic
Okay. Oh,
drones
okay.
that can drop an AGS or just a regular hand grenade. And they come to Petrovsky district and they specifically target civilian cars. I mean, there was a case maybe a month ago or something. 3 little teenage girls were standing in front of like a small shop, like a vegetable stand or something.
Mm-hmm.
And the drone's flying over. And you can see if you look at these drone videos that the Ukrops and the Russians both post, and they post it mostly of showing when they're hitting soldiers. I mean, you can tell exactly. I mean, first of all, you cannot see or hear these drones when they're targeting you. Above 200 meters, you can't see them, you can't hear them. But they have these high quality zoom lenses. I mean, they can tell if you have a mustache or not.
Yeah.
And so they know if it's a girl or a boy. They know if it's an old man or an old woman. They know if it's a civilian or a soldier. And these guys, these Nazis, they fly these drones, and these are the psychopaths. This is real evil. They enjoy terrorizing and torturing and killing innocent people just for the sake of doing it.
It's
And they,
shit, man.
and so one of these Nazis, they dropped an AGS grenade right on 3 little girls, 3 teenage
Yeah.
girls.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, when you watch these drone videos, you understand they've got it down now. They don't miss. They
Yes.
can, I mean, they can drop it right on top of your head, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, not within a meter, but within half a meter.
Yeah.
And they know exactly who they're dropping it on. And so in Petrovsky, it's been really bad. They've been using a lot of those cluster bombs again, which
Sure.
are, very scary and dangerous. I mean, basically, even one artillery shell that's filled with these cluster bombs, it's got like more than 80 of them. Each one of them is smaller than a coffee cup, about like a
Mm-hmm.
coffee cup, but it's a fragmentation out the side and it's a shape charge out the bottom. So it can, if it, it's like, say, if this is the
Yes.
shape charge and it hits like that, there's a directed high velocity explosion that comes out the bottom that can cut through the roof of a tank. But then all this stuff on the side explodes out
Yes.
360 degrees.
Shatters in small pieces.
Yeah, and that's
Mm-hmm.
so it's anti-personnel and also anti-armor.
Ooh.
And they're using them in civilian areas in Petrovsky and Kirovsky,
But you
Kievsky.
keep going to Petrovsky every day. You have to feed Busi.
Yeah, I mean, I don't go every day these days, but I go every couple of days at least.
Mm-hmm. We were there, at least I remember 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not just to feed Boosie, but also to Boosie's the cat. But to check on the house, check on the neighbors. I can tell you that, since you and I were there, I mean, and just in the recent weeks, you know, some heavy artillery has hit again several times within 100 meters of our house.
Shit.
Our house has had slight damage 3 times. It's not been hit directly,
Mm-hmm.
and thanks to God, still hasn't been. But 100 meters is like the lethal zone
Mm-hmm.
of artillery shells. So
Okay.
we're about
Okay.
as close as you can get and still walk away.
Okay. I'm glad that the center place where you are, It's better now. I mean, I saw the damage in person. 2 HIMAR missiles did to this particular building in the center, and the amount of people that killed. And since that, I do not argue with people the same way as I used to do before seeing that and testifying that and going to Petrovsky and but okay, I hope it will improve. I hope the Russians keep pushing the Ukrainians more.
I mean, as horrible as the tragedy of last night in Moscow was, I do think that it will be a turning point in how Russia conducts military operations.
And that's the next topic I wanted to discuss with you, because there's a lot of theories. You know, I learned from you one thing a couple of months ago, is that I also became critic not only of the Western media or Western or other media that supports the Western narrative, but I also became critic of the media that is been more supportive of the Russian side. Not exactly the Russian narrative. That's a different thing. The Russian side. And because you have all this Colonel Douglas MacGregor and Scott Ritters, you know, all these people, yeah. And there's a theory that it keeps continuing, and it keeps being fed that now this is it. Now the Ukrainians are going to collapse. Now it's bim bam boom and it's done. And now the Russians are just mopping up the leftovers. And I don't see it. I don't see it that way. The most recent theory, which I wanted to ask you about, is that the Americans are not helping Ukrainians as before anymore. So that's why Ukraine is now facing more difficulties on the battlefield. My theory is that is not true. I think NATO is there as it was before or more. It's been the Russians that have been growing in tactics and in quality and in quantity. What do you think of this?
Well, there are. First of all, I want to say that a fake comrade is the worst enemy.
True.
And so some of these people that are have been cheerleaders for Russia say, "Oh yeah, Russia's going to go in," and and I said the same thing when the first couple of weeks of the special military operation, I was on the front with the Russian army, and I was saying, these guys are here, they're badass, they're tough, they're ready, and there's a lot of them, and we're going to Kiev, and we were, and then something happened, and we went back. And that was a horrible mistake. It was a betrayal of a lot of people that were liberated by the Russians, and then the Russians left and they let the Nazis come back in and do things as horrible as the German Nazis did in the same exact land 80 years ago. And so so I changed my mind. But some of these clowns, who I won't name specifically, but who it's quite obvious who I'm talking about, they realized that they were getting attention by being cheerleaders for Russia. And so they just decided that's what they're going to do, regardless of what the facts are. And the thing is, there's been a lot of mistakes made by not just the Russian military, but by the Russian foreign ministry, by the Kremlin in general. They've been tricked and cheated.
And they admit that, by the way.
Well, and it doesn't matter if they admit it, and they do admit it, and that's a good step in the right direction.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter if they admit it. It's whether they learn the lesson and don't get tricked again. And one of the biggest concerns of people here in Donetsk is that, there's talk about peace treaties and la la la, and they're like, oh well, maybe Russia will just go to the borders of the 4 oblasts,
Yes.
Zaporozhye and Kherson
Kherson, yeah.
and Lugansk and Donetsk. And that's not far enough.
No, of course.
The goals of the special military operation is the demilitarization and the denazification of Ukraine. And that, anything less than that is a failure and a humiliating defeat for Russia. And the only way that goal can be achieved is by a decisive and overwhelming military defeat of NATO in Ukraine by Russia. Because, it's obvious now. The intelligent people like me that have been saying this for years, that's where all these cheerleading idiots, that's their problem, is they say, oh, yeah, Russia can whip Ukraine's ass with their eyes closed. Well, of course, but Russia's not fighting Ukraine. It's been fighting NATO all along.
Yeah, true.
And I've been saying that for years. And now it becomes so clear that even the idiots have to admit it. Although they still don't, most of them. The people that I call idiots in private.
But you agree... You agree that Russia has been growing on the front line. It's been...
Yes, you cannot deny it.
Yeah.
Russia is making geographical advances towards the West in Donbass.
Because the West says that, and for example, John Kirby admitted this, that the setbacks that Ukraine is suffering is not responsibility, or the merit is not from the Russians, but it's rather from our lack of response to the help to the Ukrainians. This is the point that is being made now.
Unfortunately, and this is where you have to understand how politics, what a greasy, dirty business it is, and the lies on top of, it's not a double cross, it's a quadruple or quintuple cross, And here's the thing. It's good that the Russian forces are kicking the ass of the Ukrainian army and moving westward in Donbass. That's not a bad thing. The bad thing is that's not where they need to be making their moves. It is a tactical success and a strategic failure. Because the only way Russia can win this war, the only way that Russia can win this war is when they control Kiev and Odessa. Complete military control of those two cities. Once they do that, they've won. And the Russian border is 100 miles from Kiev. The Belarusian border is even less.
Yeah.
Crimea is less than a couple of 100 miles from Odessa, where the land that Russian troops control is less than 50 miles from Odessa. So, that's what airborne, parachute troops, that's what air mobile helicopter troops, that's what those are for, because it's 300 miles from the front line here in Donbass to Kiev.
But do you think maybe my English is not coming out very fluid now. It happens when I come out of the night shift. It's do you think that that NATO is actually doing everything it can, but it's still not enough to stop the Russians? the thing is that in the West they always avoid to give any merit to the Russians. They always paint it like a second, third grade army, people that are not
Well, okay, but
motivated.
look, bro, look.
Mhm,
NATO doesn't care. Look, I can tell you what's going to happen.
mhm.
And I said it back in January, and now it's happening. NATO is going to bring a very big army into Ukraine. There's this steadfast defender operation, NATO operation going
Yeah,
on
I know.
till the end of May. 90,000 NATO troops mobilized on exercises, heavy duty, live fire training, in their trucks, in their armor, in their tanks, moving all around Romania, the Baltic states, Poland, Germany. And after these exercises, those troops aren't going back to their base. They're coming to Ukraine. And it's already happening. Macron has already put the
Yeah.
cat out of the bag, bro.
Hmm.
These 90,000 NATO troops are going to come in with the bullshit excuse, oh, we're just going to be peacekeepers. We're going to defend Kiev and Odessa and the western bank of the Dnieper River.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah.
And
That is happening.
and you understand, once they do that, first of all, they make it basically impossible for Russia to win the war with conventional weapons, because unless Russia takes Kiev and Odessa, they don't win. And second of all, when 90,000 NATO troops come in and defend the Dnieper River, West Bank, and Kiev and Odessa, that frees up 90,000 more UCROP troops
Yeah.
to go to Donbass for another offensive. Except this time, they have NATO cluster bombs, they have F-16s, they have all the other support that NATO, and believe me, NATO is continuing to give more powerful and more sophisticated and more lethal weapons to Ukraine, and they're not going to stop. And the dudes that are running the dudes that run the HIMARS systems, the dudes that will be flying these F-16s are not Ukrainians, because you have an F-16, cost 15 million, $20 million. You're not going to do some UCROP pilot, that flew,
Yeah.
Su-25s or
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
and give them a 6 months crash course, and then give them a $20 million aircraft and say, go fight the best pilots in the Russian Air Force. No, the guys that'll be flying those F-16s are NATO trained pilots,
Hmm.
that have years of experience, probably a lot of combat experience too.
Hmm.
And they're the ones that are going to fly it. I
Yeah.
mean, so if it's if it's an American plane flown by a NATO pilot, then who is Russia fighting?
Yeah.
If it's a HIMARS system being run by American specialists, then who is Russia fighting?
I mean, and you have this famous phone call between the German generals planning to destroy the Kerch Bridge. Yeah, I think exactly. I really wanted to hear your opinion about this, because I think like you. I think NATO is increasing support and not decreasing.
Well, I mean, and NATO, and I mean, and these are Satanists, bro. This is the battle of evil against good, and those guys are on the side of the devil, of evil, and they're not going to stop. It's like, a Rottweiler with rabies comes into your yard where your kids are playing.
Yeah.
And what are you going to go negotiate with him? Are you going to go like sign a piece of paper and say,
No.
hey, you promise not to bite my kids?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no. You get him out of the yard on the other side of the fence, or you kill him.
Okay.
And now Russia is at the crossroads. This is, what happened last night is one of the biggest, shall we say, crossing the Rubicon moments in this war. Because now Russia absolutely cannot pretend, oh, these are our partners, we can still have some kind of diplomatic solution.
No, they don't say that anymore. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and dear God, hopefully they won't do it anymore. There was, well, I mean, Russia has lost a lot at the negotiating table that they won on the battlefield.
True.
And I hope and I pray that they won't make that mistake again. NATO, our satanic enemies, are going to do every possible provocation. What they did last night in Moscow was horrific. It is an historical crime.
Do you think that's the goal of these terrorist attacks, such as this, is to really provoke Russia into an action that then NATO can? Because a lot of the Western public, despite all the negative opinions about Russia, they still don't fall for the full-on war against Russia. They are not for that. I mean, pollings show that. And so, if NATO does the first move, they cannot gather public support. Do you think this terrorist attacks are heading that way to accomplish that objective of making Russia?
Terrorist attacks. The objective of terrorism is to terrorize. And I know there's a lot of people in Moscow that are afraid to go out of their apartment today because they don't know what can happen, I mean, and those people, I mean, cowardice is the only thing worse than stupidity, but our enemies will continue to provoke and to escalate until we stop them. And this is the point, bro. How come Zelensky's still alive? How come he walks around Kiev? He's within range of our missiles. How come the American embassy in Kiev is still standing? How come the SBU building, the top floor of which is completely occupied and controlled by the CIA and the State Department and U.S. military commanders? Why are those still there? Why are those still there? And now, I mean, and I've been saying this for a long time, and it's, my biggest criticism of the conduct of the special military operation. And I had plenty of legit criticism of the conduct of what Russia did here before that, I mean, the whole Minsk agreement. I don't understand how everybody in Donbass, especially the soldiers. In 2017, I was on the Avdiivka front lines. And, we're 400 meters from the Ukrops. They shot at us, at our position, at us every day. And we had orders. This was by the time that, every battalion had their local battalion commander plus their Russian battalion commander. And the orders were literally we're going to count your rounds in your AK before you go to the frontline position. And if you think that you need to shoot back, if you start getting shot at and you need to shoot back, you need to call headquarters and you need to get specific permission from the Russian commander before you shoot back one bullet.
Politics at work.
And if you don't get permission from the Russian commander and you come back to the barracks from the frontline position with less than 30 rounds in your magazine, with less bullets than you took, we'll put your ass in jail.
Yeah.
I mean, and dude, I mean, that's not disrespecting the Russian military. That's just simply saying what they did.
Yeah.
And so no, I don't have to say whether that was a good or bad decision because everybody already knows they can figure that out for themselves. And what that did to the morale of the local troops and stuff. And so, yes, I have the right and I exercise it to criticize, mistakes that cost good men their lives.
Yes. And but we have,
and so I would be a hypocrite and a liar if I didn't, So I'll say that, and here's what I'm saying about the future of this thing. Russia cannot afford to let this war keep going on forever. Russia cannot afford to be tricked again at some kind of negotiating table. Russia has to, the only way Russia can win is by a decisive military victory against NATO in Ukraine with conventional weapons. Because really, if you understand, for me, this so-called conspiracy theory that, the golden billion, the parasite class, the global parasite class wants to depopulate the world.
Yeah, I heard about that.
If you look at everything that's happening all over around the world, if you look at that and ask yourself, why is this happening? The only explanation that makes sense is that this is a serious, genuine program to depopulate the earth through disease, through famine, through war.
But if it comes to, it can be, it's risky. If it comes to a thermonuclear exchange, not even the golden billion. If you have nuclear winter, everything is done. And
well, dude, and here's the interesting, and I don't know, but I'd be willing to bet that a lot of these golden billionaires, they have underground cities, bro. Cities where tens of thousands of people can live, and they have, greenhouse, gardens growing, oxygen generators. They have their slaves there to work. Because this is one thing about evil people. They're always egoists and they always have hubris. They always think that they're a lot smarter than they are. And so they'll say, oh, we can go live in our underground city. We spent $1 billion on our house. It's got everything, and they don't take into consideration the fact that, even a $500,000 Tesla can break down.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, of
so
course, yeah,
they think, oh, well, we'll get rid of all these useless eaters, and then we'll go live underground for a generation. Then our kids will come up, and it'll be like the Garden of Eden again. I mean,
yeah,
they believe that. I mean, they're too egotistical and arrogant to think that maybe they could be wrong. I mean, but the thing is, yes, I mean, if it's nuclear exchange, then everybody loses, dude.
yeah,
Everybody loses, even the golden billion. They
yeah,
just don't know it or admit it yet.
yeah, yeah.
But that's why what I say, Russia has to defeat NATO in Ukraine with conventional weapons. And if they do that, if they kick NATO's ass, if they shoot down every F-16, if they blow up every French or German battalion that comes into Ukraine and sends 90% of them home in a box or a bag, until the people of Europe and the United States finally get tired and say, hey, look, now we understand who the real enemy is.
Mhm.
You're sending my kids, you're sending my brother over there. He's coming back in a box. We've had enough,
Yeah,
and so the hope of the future of humanity is in the military victory of Russia over NATO with conventional weapons in Ukraine, so overwhelming that NATO is going to tuck their tails and they're not going to think, I mean, like it was 1945.
do you think that the increasing NATO presence in Europe it's somehow indicative that the Ukrainian lines are faltering and that the Ukrainians do?
Of course, dude. I mean, the it was always a proxy war.
Mhm.
It was NATO against Russia using Ukrainians,
Okay.
and as the saying goes, to the last Ukrainian.
Mhm.
Well, guess what? You can only take so many swigs off of a bottle till you get to the last
Yes.
swig. And then once you drink that one, it's done.
Done.
There isn't any more. And the Ukrainians are getting to that point. Dude, they're sending guys with one leg. They're sending guys with Down's
I
syndrome.
seen that one. That shocked me. That one shocked me.
Dude,
Really.
they're sending teenage girls
Yeah.
to the front line, to the trenches, combat positions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're already scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
I mean, all the rich ones, they're all in Europe, they're in Luxembourg or Monte Cristo or Monte
True.
Carlo.
Yeah. 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 And even
They're
here,
partying down,
and even here in Portugal, there are some of them. Even in my
Well,
small community town.
well, I mean, it's those guys, well, I mean, even here, bro, even here in Donetsk, you can still see scumbags with the UA sticker on their car.
Yeah, yeah, and they but that's very important thing. It seems like minutia, but it's very important thing for people to understand. I try to explain this that I've seen that, and people are not oppressed because they have that in their cars.
Well, I mean, and you know what? It takes a lot of self-control for me not to throw a brick through the window of a car, but I don't. I never have.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know, and I know. And you
And
showed
nobody
me some of
does.
this.
Nobody
Yeah.
does. But dude, if you drove around with a Russian flag on the back of your car in Kiev,
Ooh.
your car would be lit on fire with you in it.
Yeah, yeah, true.
Like that day.
Yeah, I try to explain this to people that Russia, in the Russian territory, the West is actually not demonized like the West does about Russia. And this has to show a lot. I mean, for me, this is I mean, who is the ones doing the belligerent talk? Who is the ones doing the aggression? Who is the ones wanting to sow chaos everywhere?
Who are the ones calling the other ones subhumans?
Subhumans, exactly.
You know, I mean, so, and really, I mean, you can tell, and it gets back to the thing. Who are the ones who intentionally slaughter men, women, and children? Civilians.
Yeah.
Intentionally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And who are the ones like you and me that would be physically incapable? You know, it's more possible for me to lift up a bus
Mm-hmm.
than it would be for me to pull a trigger on a little kid.
Mm-hmm. I completely identify with that statement.
And yet our enemies do it every day on purpose, intentionally, knowingly, and they make videos of it and they show it and brag about it.
And brag about it. Yes, that's true. There was people cheering about what happened yesterday on Telegram channels. Okay, Russell, I think it's really easy because I had all this. I always have this paper with questions, and you always spare me those because you just go and answer them before I ask them to you. But
Well, bro, I mean, okay, so I have two suggestions. First of all, this has been a pretty long interview. I suggest you cut it up into 3 or probably even 4 sections.
I will clip it, and I will clip shorter moments than that. I will do this.
And then, I mean, just make it, I mean, because people, they see, oh, it's an hour, and I don't know how long have we been talking, bro?
We've been talking for 1 hour and 40 minutes.
Okay. Nobody wants to watch. I mean, that's like a movie, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to watch a movie of us talking. But if you cut it down into 4, 3 30-minute sections, or 6 20-minute sections.
And I'll try even to, I think sometimes it's better even if you don't do that, but you clip like 1 minute or 2 minute statements.
Yeah.
And then say, if you want to watch the rest of the video, go here.
Do that, bro. I mean, do it like that. Put it on your platforms. Send me the links to all of them. I'll put it on mine.
I will. I'll do that.
I mean, my Telegram channel has 17,000
Yeah,
subscribers now,
it's amazing. I go there every day, so I know.
I'm glad you do, man. You're always welcome. And but anything that you send me, people will see. And
it's not for me. It's really the message. I just want to spread the message. I had a couple of months ago, YouTube notified me that I could start monetizing my shit, and I chose not to. I said I will not pursue that endeavor. I will.
That's the right choice, bro. I mean, I was on YouTube for like 12 years, and never wanted to monetize. First of all, I don't want to insult, or I didn't want to, because YouTube banned me, deleted my channel back in 22.
Mm-hmm.
But for 12 years before that, I didn't want to make people have to watch ads or some, bogus stuff like that.
Yeah.
And plus, I mean, once you're monetized, bro, you start self-censoring, you're like, oh, you have to tell everybody, oh, you can't say fuck.
Yeah. Exactly, man.
And so, I mean, and some people, I mean, sometimes that's the only word that really applies, so.
Yeah, I will turn off the live stream now, but I will ask you just to remain a couple of more minutes.
Of course, bro, of course.
And so I want to thank everyone that's been watching, and there has been some people watching, and for my surprise, because I didn't make any announcement, I think they get notified. And for the ones who will watch, and I think those will be also plenty, because Russell has a lot of interesting takes. And one thing that I can guarantee always from Russell is that he doesn't play any games. He says it like it is. He's straightforward. He says what he believes in, and he doesn't have it like any hidden agenda. And I mean, if you go and check out the man, and please, if you have the chance, read his book, because I've done it just recently and it was a real treat for me. And it tells you like it is. Thank you, and see you on the next one. Thank you, Russell.
Sure, bro. Thank you.